We also have Zaha Khan, also Ashaba Clara, you're with us, Shiba Blessing, and so much more. Hassan Semuju, we are seeing you as well. Now, our technical conversation this morning will be all about what we saw last week. Now, leaders of the protests in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, actually, beg your pardon, we're taking that intro again. Now, government last week actually ran to parliament seeking approval of 620.7 billion for the pre-planned recapitalization of the Bank of Uganda and 5 other banks to avert the impending economic crisis. David.
Of this money, 484.2 billion will go to Bank of Uganda, 103 billion to Uganda Development Bank, 30 billion to Housing Finance Bank, 4.7 billion to Post Bank, whose top managers are being investigated over alleged mismanagement, 2.5 billion to the Trade Development Bank, and 1 billion goes to African Development Bank.
Right, interesting. And so we are going to have that conversation. Now, this money, according to BOU and the Ministry of Finance officials, now is urgently needed to cover for deficits and losses accumulated since 2013. However, the cooperative movement in Uganda has come out to strongly say that this move is not needed, and what is needed to revive the economy instead is compensating for the cooperatives and what they lost during the war times. This is amounting to 162 billion Uganda shillings. So we're asking, how can this work? And so in studios we are joined by Khadija Nakakande. Okay, she is the spokesperson, Ministry of Trade, Industry, Cooperatives. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you.
We are also joined by Mr. Geoffrey Beinanga. He is from the Banyankole Cooperative Union. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
David.
Well, for starters, you have had these figures. They're not very new to you. You must have seen them or heard them somewhere. And the claim is that, you know, we should first facilitate or compensate the cooperatives for the NRO, the losses that were suffered in there. Do you agree with that as well?
On our side as government, we are very committed to the compensation. Actually, the process is on. I'm glad my brother from Banyankole Equatorial is here, because they are some of the beneficiaries of the compensations that we have made. Yes, they submitted their claim, and we haven't been able to give them the whole amount because the claims are many and the verification is still on. But at least there's government committed. There's government committed towards this. Every financial year, there's a sum of money that is committed towards compensation of the cooperative unions that suffered the war losses. And this financial year, we have paid so far 4 billion, and the 3 billion has gone to Busoga Growers Cooperative Union, and then we have a 1 billion that has gone to Teso Cooperative Union. So because the resources can never be enough, but at least each and every financial year, we ensure that some of these cooperative unions are compensated for the war losses.
Interesting. What do you have to say to that, Mr. Geoffrey? So far they've been able to compensate 4B. What's your take on this? Do you think it's happening at the pace or rate that you expected, so to speak?
Yeah, thank you. The compensation is okay. The government has good heart. But the timing of the compensation, you remember, it is compensation.
Right.
And when you are compensating, that means you are replacing. Now, we wouldn't expect the government now to go for capitalizing the Bank of Uganda and other commercial banks without taking a very keen interest in compensating cooperatives. Why am I saying this? The cooperatives are made up of farmers, and these farmers really do their business, and they must be capitalized. And if we look at the status of our farmers, what is their level of economic strength in order to be able to compete? That is the most important thing. If we don't compensate them, by the way, I don't look even at compensation only, because these banks are not being compensated. The comparison of the two is not true. The compensation is something different from capitalizing. We would actually think that the government would also, along its capitalizing the banks, would compensate, I mean, capitalize, leave alone the compensation, would actually capitalize the
And
cooperative
compensate.
organizations.
Right.
And that is the best of it.
But when we're faced with such a situation whereby you have to choose a priority, don't you think it's a priority for us to save the economy, so to speak, by recapitalizing, BOU and these other 5 banks? Which one should come first? Is it the egg or the chicken?
You see, the interesting thing, if they capitalize the Bank of Uganda, they capitalize the commercial banks, where is that money going? You have got to look at that journey. That money is not going to the commercial banks to sit there. That money is going to be taken over by or utilized by the farmers.
They do have a deficit though, so it's to cover for that deficit.
Yeah,
that is existent.
fine.
Right.
But even if they have the deficit in the economy, don't you think the producers of the economy, the builders of the economy should be considered?
Okay.
That is the question.
David.
Wow. Very interesting. You seem to agree with what he's saying.
Oh.
So why are you not taking that route?
The decisions are taken at different levels. As the ministry that is responsible for or is spearheading the revitalization of cooperatives, we have presented our opinions to the executive. Mm-hmm. Actually, for us, our drive is to revitalize the cooperative bank, because this is the farmers' bank,
right,
whereby farmers have ownership of the bank and they can be able to get credit which is cheaper compared to the commercial banks. So the drive has been on, and you must have heard issues were in Parliament. For a long time, as a ministry, we've been asking for a report, the liquidation report of the cooperative bank, which we haven't received up to now. Because before you revive a bank, you need to know what went wrong, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes. But up to now, we haven't received the liquidation report from the Bank of Uganda, and issues are now under investigation, what happened in Kosasi and all that. So we are still pushing on. But when you don't own the resources, we have to apply for these resources to come to the cooperative bank to be revived. So it's a process, and we hope that within time the bank will be revived.
It's interesting that matters, to do with the banks is coming up again, of course, after the Kosasi report. Do you think the recommendations will be taken up, so to speak? Of course, it stopped at that, and the Ugandans were saying that it's just another probe that we'll see, happen and come to the end. We have recommendations, and nothing is taken up. So, in your view, do you feel like this time round the ballgame will be different?
We're just like other Ugandans too. We watched the probe and whatever happened there, and Parliament makes recommendations. Whether they're implemented or not, it is up to Parliament.
Right.
Because that's how far the powers go. But our prayer is that these recommendations are actually pointing to action. If they are implemented, it would be for the good of our country and the good of the economy.
The Bank of Uganda has predicted that there is a looming economic crisis. Do you think that receiving these compensation benefits are going to help the economy?
So much. Because we believe that cooperatives, they have a very big potential. First of all, for productivity, for production and value addition. Because that's one of the biggest challenges that we have in our economy. We are called a country of samples. What can revive our economies for us to produce more, add value, produce quality, and then export so that the dollars can come in? Why the dollar keeps on escalating is because we are selling little out there. Us as a ministry, we go out there, we look for the markets. We have signed so many agreements. We are in EAC, we are in COMESA, we are now negotiating the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are opening our market as a country, but what do we have to sell in those countries? Yet we have opened, others are bringing into our markets, and they are competing with our people. But we believe that these are the cooperatives, they have that potential to increase the productivity of this country, because we don't have what to sell.
Right.
He would tell you they are exporting coffee, but they cannot be able to sustain the huge market that we have there. Our coffee is very good. Our coffee has a good aroma, but we are not able to sustain the markets because we produce less. So we believe that if we compensate these cooperatives, if we revitalize the cooperative bank, and the cooperatives can access this capital cheaply, we believe that it will address some of the challenges that we have in our economy.
Right.
Yes.
Sir, over and above compensation, of course, we know that matters to do with government and money, it takes some time. So over and above that, now that we have the markets are there, but we cannot, you know, we cannot match actually the demand that is there, the need that is there. For example, she gave a very good example, the coffee. Of course, we'll get into the conversation as to where we cannot, you know, conclusively manufacture our coffee here instead of taking it there, and then it comes back at higher prices with different branding. Okay. So what other challenge do these cooperatives face as we wait for the compensation? Of course, she does agree that this will make sure that, you know, cooperatives do better, and it is needed. But over and above that, what other challenges do we have?
You see, first of all, let me start with the ministry, where she's coming from. It's our mother ministry. We want to feel it having enough staff to educate us down there. In terms of trade, she has already mentioned that they go outside. They have signed a lot of treaties with in other countries. But do we know those treaties? Are we informed? The ministry itself has a very limited skeleton staff. It is not all over the country, so that we know, we farmers, we cooperators. That's one. The challenge is that I take an example of coffee. If you are going to the market, what do you want? What do you need? What do you need to take to the market? It is not a question of saying we don't have enough. Do we have what can go there, first of all, in terms of quantity?
Right. And quality.
Those two. Now, if you are to achieve those quality and quantity, what do you need? You need capital to live with farmers. You need manpower from the ministries, from the government, to educate us on what type of quality is wanted in the international market, so that we can be competitive enough. Number 3 is that when you are going to get quantities, you need capital, the working capital. If you don't have working capital, sorry, you cannot. And mind you, this economy is liberalized economy.
Right.
Liberalized economy is competition. We have got competition all and over with national companies that have cheap money in terms of dollars on the exchange. Now, if they bring that, can we compete? That's why we call upon the government. In their endeavors to capitalize the bank, they should also look at the productive person who is doing production, to capitalize him so that he can be able to produce, first of all, and produce the quality and the quantity that is wanted.
Khadija, why do we have the information gap? Where is the information gap coming from?
I agree that there's some bit of an information gap, but we are trying our best as a ministry. On staff, at least we have recruited enough of the cooperative officers in our ministry. The biggest challenge we have is resources, because communication comes at a cost. Going out there to meet our cooperatives also comes at a cost, and sometimes these resources are not available. Because if you look at the allocations that usually come from the Ministry of Finance, I don't want to blame them, but the Ministry of Trade is usually third last among those which are given the money. And it has a huge mandate when it comes to promote trade, looking for the markets, export promotion and all that, and even in the domestic market, handling issues of quality standards and all that. Then we have a mandate on promoting industrialization, and then another mandate of promoting cooperative development. It's quite a huge mandate. We are trying our best within the little resources that are allocated to the ministry. If the resources were enough, we would be able to do more.
But someone would argue that now we are living in a tech, before we go to David, we're living in a tech world. Already today in the papers we're seeing that the judiciary is embracing the internet, so to speak. Now they're going to be having litigations on that space, making sure that they hear some cases online. So with regards to quick solutions to ensure that we are saving down on costs, of course they're saying that this is a great route because it will save costs on their side. So is the ministry also looking at such an option whereby the world is moving towards technology? Are you trying to embrace the same to cut down on costs and ensure that we have avenues to share this information with the cooperatives?
We are actually already doing that. I would give an example of all the agreements, the trade agreements that we have signed. This is all information that you'll find on the ministry website. But when you go down there to talk to the farmers, They will tell you, we don't know how to access this thing. Some of them do not have smartphones to be able to access such information. And someone will walk all the way from Rukunjiri, all the way from Moroto to come and get information from the ministry in Kampala, information that is already on the website. We have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter handle. We are using all these digital platforms to be able to share information. But as you know, this is a gradual process for our people to get used to things of smartphones, accessing. Some other people will tell you, I believe the information if I talk to the person physically. I wouldn't believe something which I found on maybe Facebook or a website or something like that. So it's a gradual process, but it's something that we're already doing as a ministry.
Okay.
Sometimes someone calls you and says, I want to come and pick a copy of the cooperative policy from the ministry. And then you tell them, but the digital copies on the website, please go on our website. Then someone says, but how do I get there? You even give them, it's www.mtsc.go.ug. So we need also to teach our people to get used to this kind of digital communication. It's a process, yes.
Okay.
The compensation process is ongoing. Of course, there are very many questions in how the verification process and all that. It's been 35 years since the war ended. 35 years. These corporate people have survived through those 35 years. Do we really need to compensate them, or do we just need to move on to another phase?
No, I still feel that our cooperative societies or unions, they need this compensation. Because some of them, leave alone Banyankole, they are somewhere, they're even exporting. But there are those that are still not doing well. Those that really lost a lot in terms of assets, in terms of property. If you look at cooperative unions like Masaka, they are just still coming up. Right. If you look at cooperative unions like Wamala, these were badly affected by the war. And when some of them tried to come up, then there were issues of management. The little money that was there was also mismanaged, and things like that. Right. That is actually why we are even amending the law, the cooperative, to handle those issues of management, because that's another very big issue a challenge that we have in cooperative societies. Because some of them you compensate them, and then the money.
Which sends me right to what I was going to ask next. The compensation process is ongoing.
Yes.
But what evidence do they have to show you for you? Because it looks like it's now being selective. You look at like you just mentioned, Wamala, the people in Masaka. What evidence has to be shown for you to make up that judgment on who is getting the compensation and who is not getting it?
This compensation is demand driven. As a union, if you suffered the war, you have to come to us with your claim.
Okay.
You bring your claim, a list of what you lost. Was it in terms of buildings? Were they vehicles? What was it? Which assets or property did you lose? So the claim must be presented to the ministry. We have an interministerial committee that was put in place to do the verification of all these claims. I had you mentioning the 162 billion. Those are the claims that we have received so far, but still more are coming. And then we have to do this verification one by one, go on the ground to establish whether actually this property was lost by this cooperative union. First, did they own it? Did it exist? We need that evidence. So after the verification, then we put you on the list of those to be compensated. And then we ask for the finances from Ministry of Finance. So depending on how much is released, then we distribute it among the different unions that have been verified.
What criteria are you using to distribute that money?
First of all, we need to balance in the regions. Because when I show you the list of those we have compensated, all regions have benefited. In the eastern, we have compensated, like the Teso. In Lango, we have done that. When you go in the south, Banyankole Kwetaran has benefited. Nyakatonzi has benefited. When you go in the east, Busoga, even in the central, the Wamala, the Masaka. So we try to balance the region to ensure that everyone gets something. Of course, the claims, the amount of money is a lot. But we try to say if someone is claiming for maybe 7 billion, we can give maybe 2. If we get, like from my finance, let me say 8 billion. We try to say, okay, Masaka get 2, Banyankole get 3, Lango get something, Acholi get something. Okay. We try to do do that kind of balancing.
Yes. You're burning to say something.
What she's saying, she's right that what has happened. But for us down there in practice, we are finding it a very big problem. There is even under compensation. Now, if you find someone is claiming 18 billion or 10 billion, and you give him 1 billion, that means that one is under compensation.
Right.
And in most cases, that means maybe he's going to put up the capital resources that are needed down there to be utilized. You find that he or she, the institution cannot afford to do it. And it goes back that I heard him say that there is mismanagement. You may find that if you under invest, then eventually the machine that you have put there, what you have put there, using that compensation is not enough. I feel if the government is to compensate, let them be very systematic and put us on a schedule that Banyankore is going to get this year. It's 20 billion.
Wholesome.
Masaka is going to get its 30 billion. And they cross that one. They know now, they start monitoring on how that money is used.
But are the funds available for that to be afforded?
Yeah,
that could be the question.
If you compensate one and free at a go, is better than under compensate the rest you give.
Right.
It doesn't
Maybe,
work.
Adija, the question would be, what's the compensation structure and schedule like, so to speak, with regards to the period of time? Because like you're saying, he prefers, lump sum compensation and, just going systematically that way until you cover everyone. But if you're going with the needs assessment, where you give something small to every single party, where the bread is shared equally, with regards to what's available, then do we have a compensation structure that says, okay, fine, this time round we're giving you the first installment. You should be expecting the second compensation installment after X period of months or years. Do we have that in place?
We have the structure. Actually, I would love to do what he's talking about. That would be ideal for us. If we were very sure that next financial year we would be able to get the 30 billion that maybe Banyankore Kweterana is demanding for. And the next financial year would be sure that we'll be able maybe to get another 20 billion, which is being demanded for by actually cooperative unit. That would be very ideal. But all of us seated here on this table, we know that those resources, you can never be sure. You can see that sometimes you are set targets of how much they'll be able to collect, and they fail to meet the targets. So what happens? And also compensating one union maybe per financial year, that also causes a lot of pressure from the others who are also claiming, why give Banyankore Kweterana, why not us? So for us, we feel that dividing this money amongst them so that everyone gets something. Because let me tell you, even us as ministry, we are under a lot of pressure from these cooperative unions for the compensations. It's a lot of pressure. So to be able to at least to calm people down, you have to divide this money.
So what you're saying is that the second compensation installment will be in the next financial year.
Financial year.
You see, the whole thing is not I'm not saying the system they are using is wrong, but it is not guaranteeing. It has no schedule, as you have said, that if you have got your 10 billion today, tomorrow you will get the 2 billion or 1 billion or half of it. It is not known. If we are going to a known situation, then it would come down to the cooperative unions.
But for better planning as well.
For better planning. Today you get your 1 billion or 500 million, then you wait, you are not on a schedule, you don't know the schedule. If they were doing that, then there should be second schedule, third schedule, so that the cooperatives can plan and say, if I'm getting my third schedule, where do I put this money?
Right.
But you are not very sure. It will take another 10 years or 5 years. Then the planning becomes...
Adija, is it so hard to predict?
Khadija, as we wrap this up, like I said before, 35 years since the war ended. Some of these unions, let's be honest, have lost that much interest in reviving something that you are compensating them to revive. So, not in bad faith, we have all lost something in that war. We're not going to be able to compensate everyone. So why not move on and invest in new unions and we move on?
That's a crime.
It's good he has told you that it's a crime.
Yeah, because like I said, you can't compensate everything and everyone.
No, I think we can do it. It's just a challenge of resources, because when we are doing our budgeting as a ministry, these are issues, the compensations are always in our budget.
Right.
But I'll tell you that we'll present a budget to finance, and what is released is a quote of what you have budgeted for. So it becomes very difficult. If I have made a budget and said, okay, within this financial year, we want to compensate at least maybe 5 unions. But when money is released, the resources are released, and it is less of what you budgeted for, then it becomes very difficult to be able to meet the demands of the unions.
But you know why I was suggesting that is plain and simple. Is because if me and Mala wanted to start a business and we're looking for 20 million and we can only raise 2 million, it's still good enough money. But when we start the business, it's not going to take off like the 20 million that we would have gotten. So there is a slow progress in what we are aiming to achieve.
No, you see, compensation doesn't mean that the unions cannot move on. We are moving on. But compensation, what does it mean in its own sense?
Right.
It means you are returning.
Yes.
Simple.
Something that is rightfully yours.
You are returning to me.
Right.
And I want you to return to me in time and in a well-structured manner. That's simple.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming in studios. Of course, we're going to be continuing with this conversation. The hashtag is Morning at 10 TV. Adija, as we come to a close pretty much now, we all agree that the priority should be compensating the cooperatives and not recapitalizing the BOU and the 5 banks. Are we in agreement with that?
We agree with that.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, thank you so much, Hadija, for coming in studio. She is the spokesperson from the Ministry of Trade and Industry. And also we were joined by Mr. Geoffrey Bainanga. He is from the Banyan. Yes, Bainanga, that one. From the Banyankole Cooperative Union. Thank you so much for coming in studios. All right, the hashtag is Morning at 10 TV. Keep your views coming. We're getting into reality on the ground with David Rukasi.
This is BB Cool #1.